Hi everybody, welcome back to Magical Venture. My name is Thomas Carter, and you clicked on this video because you want to know what Dungeons & Dragons is. Well, here's your quick and dirty guide to what goes on at the nerdy table. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game and really the first of its kind that was ever created and sold to the masses, and it was created by one Gary Gygax in the 1970s. We are currently in the 5th edition of the game, and there's a lot of interesting stuff around all the editions, and other companies started their own version of the game, but we're not going to get into that this video. That's for another time, so let's get into what actually happens at the table. Simply put, Dungeons & Dragons is a game of heroic and fantastical make-believe. All you need to play is some paper, some information, some dice, and the willingness to maybe be a little silly, a little vulnerable, a little heroic. And when you're sitting at the table, you're playing one of two roles. You are either the game master, aka dungeon master, or you are a player. The Dungeon Master generally sets the scene, creates the environment, and adjudicates the rules for the players. You can think of Dungeons & Dragons as a kind of improvised play, where the Game Master is the director, the scenery, all the characters that are not the main characters, the orchestra, everything you can think of that is not the focus of the play, which are the players. Players create characters with fantastic or magical abilities, and they embark upon heroic adventures, whether it's slaying monsters or resolving political conflict or finding fantastic treasure. The players inhabit these characters, and the game master animates the world around them, providing a kind of structure to the imaginary world that everybody is occupying and building together. Of course, there's also dice involved, so you can scratch your gambling itch. And the dice get involved whenever a character, whether they're played by a player or the game master, tries to do something that has a chance to fail. And this is kind of up to the discretion of the game master. And that's the gist of it. Players are thrust into a dramatic narrative and based on the rules of the game and their imagination, do their best to enact their will onto that world. So there are two main pillars of the game in D&D. There's roleplay and there's combat. You might be at a table where there is a little bit of a third pillar as described in the rulebook, exploration. But honestly, it's not a very well fleshed out system and you don't see it at a lot of tables, so we're not going to talk about it here today. So the roleplay aspect of the game is where players inhabit their characters and interact with the world around them. They may be talking to the innkeeper. They might be ordering a drink at the bar, which seems to happen a lot in D&D. I'm not sure exactly why, but maybe we'll make a video about it. But this is really where the players get to know the world that they're in and understand the context for which they're going on these amazing adventures. During roleplay, or whenever you're outside of combat, the rules of the game are rather loose and highly up to the discretion of the game master. That is not necessarily true for the combat portion of the game, which is the other main pillar you see at most tables. In combat, you're really following a strict set of rules. There are some things certain characters and players can do while others there are not. There are hit points, there are turns, there's everything you might expect in a game that will make it organized and fair and fun for everybody involved, and that includes the game master who's, he's there to play too, or she or they are there to play as much as the characters are, and sometimes people can forget that. So depending on your character, there's all kinds of things you might be doing, whether it's in combat or roleplay. You might be a fighter, and you really look forward to the times in combat where you get to decapitate goblins. Or you might be a wizard, and you might be slinging fire all over the place when there's a battle going on. There's a lot of ways to express yourself at the table. So let's just give a quick example of what it might look like when you're actually playing Dungeons & Dragons. First, the Dungeon Master will set the scene. You arrive at the throne of the Goblin King, and you look beyond the heavy double doors, and you see the villagers you're here to save corralled in a dingy corner of the room. You realize the goblins have not seen you yet. What do you do? And that's when one character might say, I try to sneak past the guards so that I can begin untying the villagers' bonds? The dungeon master will say, well, great, roll for stealth. Okay, I will roll, and that is a 15 plus 4 for a total of 19. With a 19, you slip by the guards and begin untying the cloth bonds of the villagers within, unseen. And then probably another player says something like, I knock an arrow, draw the bow, and fire it straight at the Goblin King. And that's when probably your DM will say, roll initiative, and combat will begin. And so the players will try to rescue the characters, and the goblins will try to stop them. But what happens when roleplay and combat are intertwined? I really think the most fun at the table is when you see these things happening in conjunction with each other. Imagine the battle goes well for the players, and there's really not many goblins left, just the Goblin King. And in a last effort, the Goblin King grabs a small girl, puts a dagger by her neck, and says, "One more step, and the girl gets it." Combat kind of pauses as a roleplay moment begins, maybe a little cutscene, you could think of it. And what will your players do? Will they parlay with this goblin? Maybe they have something he wants. Maybe he really just wants safe passage out of there since all of his buddies are gone. Maybe he wants gold or the promise of a crown or something like that. What is that girl's life worth to your players? And man, I don't know what happens in this situation with your players or the people at your table, but really, players come up with the darndest things, and it's really a huge part of the fun to just try and problem solve and negotiate with this non-player character. So really that's it in a nutshell. I'm trying to keep this short so that people can watch it and understand quickly. We're going to have more videos about dice and the mechanical things, what's really going down, why do you calculate those things when you roll, etc., how to build a character. I hope you've enjoyed the video and this helps you figure out what D&D is. Please like and subscribe, hit the bell, that really helps the channel out. Thank you so much, and I hope you are on a magical venture right now.